Over the last month, farmers from across America have been raising the alarm that they are in deep manure. Record agricultural debt, combined with disruptive trade wars, financial consolidation of farmland, inclement weather conditions, the gutting of federal programs, increased input costs, and low market prices are combining to make most of these businesses completely unviable. This is in addition to the problems that the industry isn't allowed to talk about too loudly, like a lot of mysteriously cheap labor being a little bit harder to find right now. The number of agricultural bankruptcies has spiked this year, and now farmers are saying that they will probably need a bailout to keep their essential industry afloat. Now, this wouldn't actually be the first time this has happened. Just 6 years ago, farmers got another bailout under very similar circumstances, which only accelerated the trend of farming becoming increasingly consolidated. Big farms get bigger assistance packages and can take bigger risks knowing there is a bigger chance they won't be allowed to fail. But today, the conditions are worse. Nothing has been decided, and the clock is ticking. Moral hazard has well and truly taken hold in another vital industry, and major players know it. But that still doesn't make the situation any less dangerous because, well, we can't eat the moral high ground.
Rising concerns from our state's farmers as free trade economists say tariffs threaten to drive up their costs.
I'm a sixth-generation farmer from Newport, and we made a decision to go out this year, in the spring.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here, it's everywhere.
As the fallout from the Trump administration tariffs continues, there is talk that the administration might fund a new bailout for American farmers.
Even during good times with minimal disruptions, farming is a difficult business with a lot of overhead and very thin margins. Industry groups have been pointing out that most agriculture in America is still done on family farms, which is technically true, but also a convenient lie at the same time. According to the latest data released from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 86% of farms operating in America were classified as small family farms. However, this number includes so many insignificant examples that it's basically insignificant itself. According to the USDA's reporting criteria, a small family farm is an operation that generates less than $350,000 in a year, but makes more than $1,000 a year. The hurdle to classify as a farm is so low that things like Christmas tree lots and even large vegetable gardens at farmers markets get included in the total count of small family farms. All of these small farms collectively only account for 41% of total land area and 17% of total production. The vast majority of agricultural production is actually done by large-scale family farms that are multi-million-dollar operations, the same as any other large family-owned corporation. There's also a rapidly growing share of institutional farms owned by investment firms. The difference between this composition and this composition is actually part of what makes farmland such an attractive investment class. Now, this is really important to remember when seeing news about town halls full of struggling small-time farmers asking for assistance. It's not that their struggles are not real. They are getting crushed. But it's just that the imagery of lots of small working-class farmers going out of business is a really effective marketing tool for industry lobbying.
If there's no emergency funding this year, there will be 1 out of 3 farmers will file bankruptcy.
People don't care if Old McDonald's Incorporated Real Estate Investment Trust has a bad quarter. But those same companies are banking on the fact that politicians do care about the optics of thousands of family farms closing down. And since that's technically the majority of the industry, the big players can always count on government support coming through. Ultimately, most of the benefits of that lobbying will flow to the largest producers, which are not the same people currently voicing their concerns in town hall meetings. If anything, the industry giants will probably use this financial relief to further consolidate this industry, making it even harder on these guys. Oh, and of course, some of you are probably already pointing out that even these small family farmers are not faultless either, and we will get to that later. But first, it's important to understand the 4 major problems all hitting agriculture at the same time right now. The first big problem is probably what you are already thinking: the trade wars. Every year, around 20% of the food we grow is sold abroad to markets mainly in Canada, Mexico, and China, the same countries that we have been pushing hard with trade wars. America is the world leader in agricultural trade, and countries are highly dependent on these exports to feed their own agriculture, but more importantly, their own people. There is a lot of bluff and bluster when it comes to hammering out the exact details of these trade agreements, and honestly, a lot of it is just political theater. Behind the scenes, they are willing to go back and forth on things like consumer goods and cars to secure a good photo op. But if there is one thing that these governments absolutely will not fuck around with, it is making sure their people get fed. There is an old adage that even the most stable empires are only 3 missed meals away from chaos, and most world leaders understand this deeply. If they want to keep their jobs, and probably their heads, they need to make sure that their people are fed. Because of this, almost every country that is reliant on food imports from America has made major investments into finding alternatives as quickly as possible. China is typically the largest international purchaser of American soybeans, which it uses primarily for domestic livestock feed. But this year, it hasn't purchased a single bean. Instead, it's strengthened trade ties with Brazil, and it's accepting the slightly higher price of their soy over ours. What makes this especially hard is that harvests need to be planned months in advance, and global trade dynamics are changing faster than fields can grow. Now, this would make things incredibly difficult for commodity farmers at the best of times, but America actually has a lot of programs in place to ensure some level of stability in this market. Or at least, we did. A report by Bloomberg Law found that the biggest cause of the current wave of bankruptcies is frozen government programs that farmers were counting on for their continued operations. In total, dozens of programs have been frozen, with individual operators reporting that they already made the investments to qualify for these grants, and only after the work was done are they being taken away. According to the industry group NSAC, over 30,000 contracts in total are being withheld indefinitely. This alone is not great, but it gets worse. This wasn't a cost-cutting measure. Government funding for farms is actually increasing with a range of new incentives. The only problem is, those programs start next year. So in the meantime, the current market is just filtering out the smaller farms that can't wait that long. And of course, on top of that, there is still the elephant in the room that these current problems are exactly what a majority of these farmers voted for. So it's time to learn how money works to find out what's really behind America's homegrown farming crisis. This video is sponsored by BootDev, the platform I've been using lately to actually enjoy brushing up on my backend development skills. BootDev was built to solve the biggest problem with online coding courses: staying motivated. Instead of another dry tutorial, it feels like playing a game while you learn, complete with quests, XP, levels, and even bosses. The focus is back-end web development, so you're writing real code from the very first lesson in Python, SQL, and Go. The balance between theory and hands-on projects makes it feel like you're building actual job-ready skills instead of just memorizing concepts. Personally, I've been working through their data structures and algorithm courses in Python, and the way they layer challenges with interactive coding has made everything click faster for me. And if I ever get stuck, Boots, their AI wizard bear, nudges me in the right direction instead of just giving away the answer. They also recently launched something called the Training Grounds, which is basically unlimited coding challenges to help you drill your weak spots before moving on. Super helpful if you're preparing for technical interviews. You can try BootDev completely free in guest mode, and if you want the full interactive experience, use my code MONEYWORKS using the link in the description to get 25% off your first year on the annual plan. So a lot of people have been quick to point out that the current farming crisis might just be another example of people voting against their own best interests. The current administration didn't exactly hide their intentions to pursue tariffs and cut government programs during their election campaign. And yet, farming-dependent counties overwhelmingly supported them. So maybe they shouldn't exactly be shocked Pikachu in response to these problems. This is especially true for the third big challenge they are facing, which is that they are running out of workers. A report by the Economic Policy Institute found that 70% of all investigations into the agricultural industry detected violations in wage and hour laws. Labor-intensive farm work like hand harvesting is almost always conducted by contractors since they are only needed when there is an actual harvest to be picked. These contracts frequently pay based on output rather than total hours worked, which means it is very easy for these independent contractors to make less than minimum wage for their work. This can be really hard to police, because legitimate small contracting businesses or freelancers don't have the legal right to earn a set amount of money for a set amount of hours worked. A plumber who runs their own small business can easily end up doing hours of work where they earn below minimum wage, so an independent laborer picking fruit can be treated the same way. The economic realities test to make distinctions between these two circumstances is hard and often has to go to the courts, which is obviously very difficult for a lot of these groups. At the end of the day though, the results are probably not exactly shocking to you. Young Americans are not exactly lining up to do hard labor in the sun for hours a day, all to make below minimum wage. But now, with heightened immigration enforcement, farmers are also finding it harder to rely on undocumented workers who have typically been more willing to accept these unfavorable conditions. According to the Economic Policy Institute, these enforcement activities were briefly paused in response to pushback but are currently still in full swing. Again, no matter where you stand on these issues, you can't exactly argue that the current administration was trying to hide their intentions with these plans. So then why did this industry vote against its own interests? Well, it probably wasn't as simple as that. Most farmers that are still around today are quite wealthy. In a lot of regions, they are making far more from the appreciating values of their land than they are from the crops that they grow on that land. According to a report by the USDA, croplands have increased in value by an average of $270 per acre within the last 12 months, while the actual top-line revenue from that same acre only averaged out to $205 an acre before any costs or expenses. This has slowly changed the industry of farming from a business of making food to a business of land speculation with a side hustle in government food programs. A first-hand account posted by Sarah Tabor explained this from personal experience working in the industry and proposing policy. If you haven't already seen it, I will leave a link to it below, because she obviously has more personal experience with the issues. But in brief, certain policies like tax cuts and increased benefits were more attractive to these business owners than the fear of genuine economic repercussions. The Big Beautiful Bill actually significantly increased government spending on farming assistance over the next 10 years by $56 billion, which will mostly go towards boosting government reference prices and insurance assistance. The current problem is that those new rules don't officially start until next year, while farmers are dealing with the immediate problems right now. This is why so many in the industry are asking for short-term support, because if they can survive to next year, things should get a lot more financially rewarding. Another component of recent tax changes that were particularly appealing to farmers were new capital gains tax brackets and deferrals on the sale of farmland, which could all significantly reduce how much they owed if they sold off their rapidly appreciating land. Now, I really don't want to get conspiratorial here, so you should know that this next part might just be a happy little accident. However, these new tax policies also pair really well with the emerging fintech platforms like AcreTrader, Farm Together, and Farmfolio, which let farmers sell portions of their land to outside investors who themselves can build up a diversified portfolio of different agricultural production. These platforms have raised a lot of money from people who themselves are also large investors in farmland as a financial asset, and also people who have a significant influence in shaping these policies. How much they actually use that power for their own self-interest is up to you to decide. But it gets worse. According to the Government Accountability Office, just 7% of farmers received 63% of all the financial assistance between 2019 and 2023. Increased assistance and consolidation will only make this statistic even more skewed by disproportionately benefiting larger consolidated farm operations. These larger farms simultaneously have greater financial stability to survive through tough times and benefit more during the good times. If you see news footage covering this farming crisis, you are going to see barns full of small farmers talking about their struggles. But that's not the agricultural industry. That's what the agricultural industry was. Most government programs intended to help out the idealized small family farmer end up helping out big agricultural businesses even more. The few actual small family farms that are still holding on are inevitably going to find it hard to compete with these kinds of market dynamics, but their struggles are a really good way to keep those benefits coming. There is an excerpt in the book Catch-22 that has become popular in response to this evolving crisis. His specialty was alfalfa. He made a good thing out of not growing any. The government paid him well for every bushel of alfalfa he did not grow. The more alfalfa he did not grow, the more money the government gave him. And he spent every penny he didn't earn on new land to increase the amount of alfalfa he did not produce. Major Major's father worked without rest in not growing alfalfa. Major Major's father was an outspoken champion of economy and government, provided it did not interfere with the sacred duty of government to pay farmers as much as they could get for all the alfalfa they produced. Now, this book was originally published in 1961 and is about the events of the Second World War, but you can probably see the relevance it has today. Now, these perverse incentives may be bad, but it gets worse. An industry-wide crisis like this just becomes a buying opportunity for investors with spare capital. A lot of genuine family farmers are seeing the ideal tax policies as a convenient time to hang up the hat and get out while they can. And then by the time support comes through to fix the industry, the biggest operators are the ones that will receive the support. According to census data, there are already 10% fewer farms than there were just 5 years ago when we were facing a similar crisis. If the farmers themselves are to be believed, there is a good chance that there will be even fewer in another 5 years from now. Larger, more institutional farms can also afford to spend more on lobbying, which is why they have slowly become one of the best funded voices in Washington. Oh, and there is one other big benefit these institutional farmers have. They don't really care how much money their farmland actually makes. Go and watch this video next to find out what's really behind farms becoming the hottest new alternative asset class. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.